A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to start at the beginning, with the house.
Welcome back to another Spoilercast. I'm your host, Boston, and joining me is Moonpir.
Hello.
This time we're going to spoil what remains of Edith Finch.
Yes.
I think... previously we talked about Doki Doki Literature Club, which was a surprise game, I would say. And I think what remains of Edith Finch was another surprise game for me, where I was sort of like, everyone seems to really like this year, so let's give it a shot. Oh, it's actually really good. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Boy, where to start? I think this game starts on a really high note. I think it's cool how it makes you open that book at the beginning to sort of teach you the controls.
Yep.
And I really like when you're walking down that path, from the first time it shows up until the last time it shows up, putting the subtitles in the environment never once got old.
Nope, never once. And they didn't reuse the subtitles that much at all.
Right.
And it actually makes me laugh because my wife is hard of hearing and I always have subtitles on, and so does she.
Yeah.
And literally the first thing we always do in every game we play is go into the options and look for subtitles.
Yep.
This game doesn't have a subtitles option.
Oh, yeah, that's right, it doesn't, because I do the same thing. Like, I just need to have subtitles on, because I
That's your
like
anime fan showing.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I just sort of like it in general, and I was a little disappointed. I'm like, there aren't really any options for this game at all. Well, we'll just start it, and it was like, oh, that's super cool.
Yeah. And yeah, start it as it either says it starts. You start at the house, which... I love my wife's description of this. It's like the Weasley house.
That's the first thing I thought when you walk up to the house, and it's just like jutting off, and you can tell people just put room after room stacked on top of each other at the top of the house, and it's just like,
yep.
All right, this is definitely something I haven't seen before in a game, where it's just this. The house itself has a lot of character too.
Yeah, it really does, and the build-up as well as you're walking through the forest and you're getting the subtitle reveal and the way it breaks them against the trees.
Yeah.
And things like that. Like the presentation just from the get-go. Like it's not a super realistic art style. It's kind of cartoony, but it's really well done.
Yeah.
And just the presentation from step number one or seat number one when you're sitting on the boat is really nicely done.
Yeah, and I like... there's two things I really like about this game. One is, I guess there's three. One is I really like the presentation of the subtitles. You know, when you're walking through the forest at the beginning and the subtitles are on the gate and you open it up and they sort of swing away too. I really, really loved in this game how everything so I'm playing on PS4, so it's either R1 or R2 to interact with stuff. You have to hit R1 to like grab onto something. And then, like, if you're opening a door, you have to push it forward. You know, you push the stick forward or you're opening up a hatch, and you have to, like, push the stick forward to lift it up. And it all felt good. And
natural.
It felt natural, and to me, I think that's how a game like Edith Finch breaks out of the quote-unquote walking simulator stereotype, is that you have something to interact with while you're going through the house. It's not just like, go up to this door, hit X. Oh, open the door. Oh, I'm in the room. You know, you're manipulating the environment, and I think that works so well in the house and then in each one of these stories really, really well.
Yeah.
So let's start breaking down some of these stories, I think, because it's...
Yeah. I mean, the way it's described is it's 13, I think it describes it as 13 stories. It neglects to mention it's all the stories of one family.
Yeah, it's all about the curse of the Finches.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all, you know, why are you the last living Finch? And how did we get to this point where you're investigating the house just to figure out what happened to your own family?
Yeah, and my favorite thing it does is it drops lines that you will immediately think, wait, what? And then it answers them later. Like when you are approaching the house, I believe Edith Finch says that her senior Edie has lived in the house since the original house sank.
Yeah, and I'm sort of like, well, the house did what?
What? The house sank? What?
Yeah, like how does... And it feels good because it really feels like... It really feels like there's this mystery, not only to the Finches and what happened with their history, but also what happened to this house. The house is a character by itself, and I think that's so cool.
Yeah, especially when you actually, like, depending on your method of getting in, I think I went the doggy door route. I don't know if you have to.
I did too, yeah.
But when you get there and you go inside and you start exploring, and it looks like a lived-in house. Mm-hmm. Like, you get the personality from every room, every main room, I should say, before we go into the bedrooms, but, like, the kitchen, everything, and the commentary that they throw in helps a lot. Like when you're walking through the kitchen and she says, we all got fed up of salmon once someone started working up at the cannery, except for the cat. The cat still loved it. Yeah. And you're walking around and it's like, oh, why can I not get into any of these doors? Oh, wait, that's because they're all sealed shut.
Yeah, and I think that's so great, and I think the when you find out what the key is for, and you go up to that book and you open it, and then behind it is like the opening to another room.
Yep.
At that moment, I was like, okay, this game is really, really pretty cool. Apologies if everyone hears a stupid dog in the background. Let me close this window.
My favorite use of the key, I have to say right now, is the bathroom book, because she uses the same key 2 or 3 times to unlock a couple of the books, and the bathroom book is my favorite one because there is a secret inside this bathroom, and then you unlock the book and then you open it and it's like a kid's cartoon book.
Yeah, it's like a pop-up book.
And on the inside it says, it's in this book.
Yeah, it's like it's not in the toilet, it's not in the shower. It's in this book, and you like pull it out.
Yep.
Yeah, the very first story you delve into is the one of Molly Finch, and I think this is the one thing that they showed off really early was the shark rolling down the hillside. Yeah. And everyone was like, was this like a shark Katamari game? Like, what the hell is this thing? And I think this is such a cool explanation of like a child's imagination, where you're a cat, and then you're an owl, and then you're the shark, and then you're the monster, and then the monster eats Molly. You know, it's such a cool thing where you instinctively... That's one of the great things about this game, is you instinctively know the controls. Like, when you're an owl, of course hitting the button is going to make you swoop so you can catch a rabbit. Yep. You know, the word rabbit is circling around the rabbit on the ground.
Yeah. Do you know how Molly died?
No.
Because I missed this, and my wife cleverly caught it really well.
Okay.
The reason Molly is hungry... Molly's story starts with her saying she got sent to bed without any dinner.
Yep.
So she was hungry, so she wanted something to eat, so she ate the toothpaste.
Right.
And she ate a bunch of other stuff. And she ate holly berries from the windowsill, which are very highly toxic.
Right.
So my wife said to me, and I didn't notice it when she said it, she said, Molly died of poisoning, didn't she? Like, she went into hallucination because she ate holly berries from the window.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point that I actually clean missed myself.
Yeah, I had noticed she'd eaten the berries, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together on that, because it was just... it's such a strange sequence of events, and I think
It also does help explain that, though, because if she's poisoned and she's hallucinating, makes
Right.
perfect sense why all of a sudden she's a cat and then she's a bird.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting story, and I think it's a really interesting introduction to the curse of the Finches, because they say it's a curse, but I think it was, as we continue to play through the game, it's not really a curse, it's just kind of bad luck, or just bad
luck,
decisions.
Life is hard. It's a
Yeah.
mixture of life is hard and bad luck kind of thing.
Life
like the
hit
Molly
this
thing
family
is...
tree pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who do we have here next? Let's pull up the family tree here. We have... I'm trying to walk through it here in order, and I'm trying to look at some walkthroughs, and a lot of them are these like achievement walkthroughs. It's like, well, I don't want that. I just want to know in order who we ran into. I think the next one is Calvin. This is
The swing
one, which Moon and I both ran into the same thing, where it's like, I'm kicking the one leg, the one that isn't broken, and I'm like listing over to the left side. Oh, I need to use both legs.
Yep.
And
my wife figured that one out because she just sat there not swinging and just doing little kicks with her legs.
oh, he's sending them back and forth. Oh, that's really good.
But that sequence I love because it gives... People talk more in modern racing games about a sensation of speed.
Yeah.
And how a lot of them don't do a good enough job. The prime example of this is Burnout Paradise. When you go on 100 miles an hour, you feel that way. You feel like you're going 100 mile an hour on this swing.
Yeah.
Like the wind rushing past your face. I think it does a slight camera trick where it like tightens the view a little bit.
I think so.
To make it look like it's further away than it is. And all you're hearing all the time is rush as the wind just is coming past your face. It's really well done.
Yeah, and I really like how they presented a lot of these stories where it's this almost like bittersweet romantic, like, yeah, this kid died, but he also, like, for the first time figured out how to fly. And there's something, the word I use to describe this game so often is bittersweet, because it's really like a sort of a sweet story that ends up in a kid dying. You know, but it's told so strongly, and the woman who does the voice acting for Edith is so strong. She sounds the perfect age. She has the perfect hesitancy when she's talking. And I think this is one of those stories where it's sort of like, oh man, that was really good and super sad.
Specifically in the kids' stories, like whenever we get one of these stories that involves younger people, I think it does a really great job of expressing the innocence of children. Like, he doesn't know he's going to plummet to his death after he jumps off the swing over the fence.
Yeah, he just wants to go all the way around. Every kid does.
But it took me so long to figure out what they meant when they said that. Like, Edith is talking about the older brother saying he should never have said to him, it's impossible to go all the way around, because he wants to do everything that you say is impossible.
Yep.
And I was thinking, what's he talking? Oh, I'm on a swing all the way around the swing. Now I get it.
Right. Every kid's dream.
Yes.
The next one, which I really liked, and a lot of the stuff in between isn't super interesting until we get to the later part of the game.
I do love how, though, before you do in the individual stories, when you go, as you're progressing through the bedrooms of this house, as you're doing that, the rooms are so individual.
Yeah.
Like, they represent those characters so well, especially after you've done the story and you just take a look around. It's like, okay, yeah, I could see this being that person's room. Yeah,
exactly. The next one is probably one of my favorites in the game, and that's Barbara, the Scream Queen.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I liked hers, but I think hers is outshone later.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I don't think hers is the best. Well, that is the best one later. What I really liked about hers is the comic is represented like Tales from the Crypt really well. Like it nails
the voice acting is so good.
Yeah, and like the style and all that. And what I wasn't expecting is I was expecting to just kind of turn through this book and have it be a story, but when you start controlling some of the panels and the art style in the game that you're controlling is the art style of the comic, I was like, all right, man. Like, you're really getting me here. This is really good.
It's really well done. It's like, oh, then she crept downstairs, and it's like, okay, nothing's happening.
It's like,
wiggle the stick. Wait. I'm controlling it inside of the panel, inside of the game. It's inceptioning me in a video game. I'm playing a game within a game within a game.
Yeah.
It's so well done, and it's so well presented. Like, the voice acting, the art style change, that section, that was when I thought this might be something special.
Yeah, because it's like, you have presented me 3 different stories at this point that have all been completely different and controlled completely differently, and I really love it.
Yep.
The next one is Walter. This was the one that I thought wasn't going to be super great. This is the guy who went under the house and was hidden for 30 years. The progression of time, with him opening a can of peaches, and it's 10 years later, it's 20 years later. This, for me, is probably one of the least interesting stories up until the very ending, because it very much is like, something is outside, shaking the whole house, and I don't know what it is, but I'm not leaving. And then once it stops, he decides to leave, and as soon as he, tastes the sea air, he gets hit by a train.
Yep.
And it's sort of like, you know what? Yeah, that's the Finch curse, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember why he decided to go and live in the basement.
Yeah.
It is brought up, and it is mentioned, but it's less interesting than the fact that there's a man living under the house who just happens to be their uncle, who they all say has gone missing / dead.
Yeah. There was some point, I feel like there was some strife in the family.
I think it was what happened to Barbara is what caused him to vanish.
Oh, yeah, because he said, I'm going to go look for her, and then disappear in the basement.
Yeah, because Barbara was murdered, which is how she died.
Right.
She was murdered by fans because she was a former actor.
Right.
And what happened to her is what caused him to decide, no, I think I'm done.
Yeah. The next one is probably my least favorite because it's the most frustrating, and that is Sam. The one where Sam and...
The photographs.
Yeah, the photograph one, which is such a cool idea, and I feel like for 2 or 3 of the photographs, I spent way too long zooming in and zooming out and panning all over the place and just not finding it and trying Yeah, I have to zoom all the way out to pan over to where I couldn't before. It was pretty frustrating, but man, that had a great payoff of, I didn't want to shoot this deer. You're going to take a picture next to it now. Wait, it's still twitching. Boop, kicked you off a cliff.
Yep.
And just really, that picture where he's falling off the cliff is sort of like, yeah, man, that's the Finches.
Yeah, I love the fact that his story as well is told in the final print reel of film that was developed by him as well.
Yeah.
A war photographer who was being killed by a deer, and it was literally his last ever photos.
It's a cool touch.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that. The next one is the super bummer one, and that's Gregory.
Oh,
this is this is the story where I realized that some of these tales, like Maggie's, like Gregory's, Molly and Gregory, they're not the truth.
No.
Like Gregory turns into a frog and swims away under the water. But what really happened is his mom got distracted and he drowned because he's an infant. But the romanticism around what really happened versus the Finch curse is pretty interesting.
It's also like you hear that you start this story by reading basically divorce papers between his parents.
Yeah.
And it's the dad talking about how this kid wouldn't stop laughing, wouldn't stop smiling.
Yeah, he was always looking at something, but we never knew what he was.
Yeah, it just had such a great imagination. And then the sequence you do with him it's the quintessential, child's imagination.
My toys are alive.
The toys are alive. There's music. It's like a carnival show going on.
Yeah.
It was so well done.
Yeah, it's a really hard one to watch because you know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the just like Sam's one, or Calvin, sorry, just like Calvin's, where it's sort of like, that's a real romantic way of saying a kid died. I think there's a real romantic one saying like, well, he turned into a frog and he went down the drain and now he's out at sea living with his frog friends. That's pretty great, but that's one of the tougher ones to watch.
Yeah, that one, when I figured out that he didn't grow up, I was thinking, I don't really want to play this sequence if I'm completely honest.
Yeah, like that's the one where it's like, he died real young. This is real rough. The next one is one of my more favorite ones in the game, and that's Gus, the one with the kite at the wedding. Just a really cool idea of unveiling and unscrambling the letters and like scraping the letters off of the side of a cliff and attacking stuff in the environment.
This is where the subtitles interaction comes in a lot. Yeah, where it stops telling the story and then you're flying this kite around and you see, oh wait, what's all this white lettering in these trees? Fliff, 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 and continue the story.
Yeah, I think the bad part about Gus's story is it's one of the least likely ones to sort of believe. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time and got smushed by a tent. That one is probably the most mundane out of all the Finch demises.
It is as well, but at the same time, I don't know how much exploring you did, but it's actually in the family tree picture. If you look at him, the kid has got a mohawk.
He does, yeah.
Which means he's what? Maybe he's 13 when he dies.
Yeah.
And he's right at that stage where young 13-year-old boy, mohawk, he's very rebellious kind of thing.
Devil may care.
Yeah, I could kind of see it being a little bit more like the parents are just fed up, especially considering he says he doesn't need a stepmother because there's a wedding going on and it's his dad being remarried to a different woman. I can understand him acting that way and why that might be a bit more possible.
Yeah, definitely. The next one is the game's shortest one that I sort of liked a lot, and that's Milton. That's Milton Finch and the Magic Tassel.
Yes.
Which is really great. You bring up a flip book, and as you're flipping through the flip book, it's Milton drawing another flip book, and he jumps into a portal or a giant keyhole in a doorway, and it disappears, and then the rest of the flip book is blank.
Yep. And that same door is actually painted at the bottom of his tower.
Yep.
But his is I think it's the shortest of the stories, but also the most interesting because it is very representative of Milton just vanished. He literally just disappeared. They don't know if he's alive. They don't know if he's dead.
Did he go through the doorway for real? Or did he just poof and disappear? I think that's one of those ones where I finished the book and I was like, oh, that was really good. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. I sort of second to last, I think it is here, is the best one.
Yes.
I would be surprised if anyone was going to argue, and that's Lois.
Yep.
It's certainly the longest. It's certainly the most complex. And it's the most involved. And man, it's really good. Because I think the beginning of it is you reading the psychiatrist or psychologist's note saying yes, this dude is just in his own head and unfolding his imagination.
Yeah, it's even worse because they talk in that letter about how it's his first period of sobriety.
Yeah.
He's stopped doing drugs, he's stopped drinking, he's sober for the first time in a long time, and he can't handle it. It's not because he's got urges to do the drugs or anything like that still. It's the fact that he has such a vivid and active imagination that it looks like that's what the drugs were doing for him, were putting a dampener on it. allowing him to just operate semi-normally. Because what happens in this story is both incredible and so horribly depressing at the same time.
Yeah, and from a gameplay and from a... It's really interesting having to juggle the two things at once. Like, you have to continue to do your job, which is cutting the heads off the salmon. But you also have to control, with the other stick, you have to control the character in this ever-expanding, and I think... That's my favorite thing this thing did was, it starts off as like an ASCII art, like doop, 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 just walking through. And the more involved his imagination gets, the larger it becomes on this salmon head chopping table, until it's just completely overtaken the screen. And it's this cool, great looking 3D behind the back full experience.
Yeah, it goes like from that to like the isometric perspective, and then it does the expanded universe with the boats and sailing down a river.
And like some crappy PS1 graphics.
Yes, incredible moment when you're going down the river as well, and it basically gives you a choice. Are you looking for a princess or a prince?
Yeah, and I liked how they worded it. It was the handsome princess or the beautiful prince.
Yes.
And then it's like, what do they love? Rainbows versus...
Tentacles, I believe it was.
Yeah, I think it was that. I mean, that's a hell of a scene, and we talked in Doki Doki Literature Club about how games as a medium you can only experience or do things in games that you couldn't do in other stuff. And I think this guy's story is proof positive of using the language of games and how games have evolved, plus controlling two things at the same time, plus it being this story that encapsulates his entire life. It would be really hard to communicate that in something else.
Yeah, I don't think you could develop, like, you're introduced to this guy at the start of the sequence, and by the end, you care about him, and it is the longest sequence in the game. But you put on a 5-minute commercial or a 5-minute anything, and you develop an emotional attachment to a character in there.
Yeah.
It ain't happening. Whereas with this, it's the way the story is told, the interactions that you do in it, it allows you to actually be that much more effective with storytelling because you are interacting with it. And then it's great because as you go on as well, you chop the heads of salmons to open doors. It's so great at just portraying this guy's... I don't want to say like a descent into madness, but more like an ascent into madness.
Like a full escape.
Yeah, like he's had enough of day to day, and he kind of likes his imagination more than he likes the real world. And I can guarantee you, a lot of people in this alive on the planet today have felt that way a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the times, most stories in this game are not narrated by Edith herself, and I think most of them are good, but I think when you get to Lois's, I think having the doctor narrate almost clinically how his escapism has progressed, I think that a little bit of a detachment from what's actually happening is really, really cool.
Yeah. And it comes as well, it allows you to connect that much easier because this is a person who would know. This is someone he would confide all of this in.
Yeah.
So they would be the person to tell the story because they know him better than anybody else.
Yeah. Really the only two people we have left here in the family tree are Edie and Dawn, who are the two that, Dawn being Edith's mom, and Edie being Edith's grandmother, who they lived with basically at the end. They were the last three Finches. They don't get an extended sequence like everyone else had because it's Edith, narrating it herself, saying that, Dawn had enough. Her mom had enough of losing everybody and sticking around for it. And they left, and Edie died overnight. And then Dawn got sick and never got better. And then
same with her dad.
Yeah, same with her dad. And to wrap out the game is a surprisingly effective and not cheesy birth sequence, which I'm not sure I have seen before in media. Usually it's sort of like, oh god, here we go. Yeah, you're getting birthed. All right, cool.
Yeah, look who's talking. Prime example of how to do it wrong.
Yeah. It somehow earns it, and I think it's another really great bittersweet moment where Edith lives long enough to give birth to her son and presumably dies in childbirth.
Yeah, that's not clarified at all, but yeah, it does sound like that's what happened. And
I like that Edith wasn't the last Finch, and I like that some of her last lines are like, I wrote this book for me, and I never meant for you to find it, and if you did, I'm not here anymore. Mm-hmm. That's pretty heartbreaking, but there's that sweet side to the bitter of there's another Finch.
Yeah, and I especially like the fact that it loops back around to at the start of the game when you're coming into the island on a boat, and you look down. The guy's got a broken hand from something, but he's also got a bunch of flowers, which presumably he's going to go there, take it there, and place it on the grave of his mother. Right. Which is a really nice little touch.
Yeah, because you find out that you're not really playing as Edith the whole time. Just you're playing as Edith's son reading the journal and sort of trying to unveil this mystery.
Yeah. Speaking of amazing touches this game does, by the way, something I didn't notice. It's a modern day thing. First person games, you look down, you have feet. You have a chest, you have arms, you have that kind of thing. Edie has a bump. Edith Finch has a very noticeable pregnancy bump that you don't know is pregnancy until she drops 2 hints about it in the actual, as she's telling the story she goes through. But if you look straight down, she has a little bit of a bump.
I never put 2 and 2 together on that.
My wife looked down while she was playing it and was like, "Oh, look, I've got a body. I've got little feeties, and look, I'm a little chubby." And I was just turned around and walked away. I was like, "Can't say anything. Don't say anything.
Not gonna spoil it." Yeah, I think just like DDLC, I'm really glad I played Edith Finch so it could get on my top 10 list.
Yeah, same.
Because this is one of those games where, like, over the last couple of weeks, I have railed against the term walking simulator because I think they're just adventure games.
Yeah, it's what they have evolved into.
Yeah, and there's still the traditional point-click adventure games. There's still adventure games like Oxenfree, and there are first-person ones like this game. And I think I would be hard-pressed to believe that someone would play Edith Finch and still be upset at walking simulators. Because I think it's just such a great game and such a great story for the entire thing that if you don't love it, I don't know what, man.
Yeah, it does both so well, but it's very similar to DDLC in the fact that it breaks your expectations of what these games are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what you think this game is going to be? Let me just flip that on its head for you. Here's a shark rolling down a hill.
Right. And it makes sense. Oddly.
It makes sense, and then here's these heartfelt stories that you control, pretty much most of them differently.
Yeah.
And they all have different reasons and different things, and this isn't your daddy's walking game kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
People have made these games and they've made them well. This is the next step for them, I think.
Yeah. Anything else to mention before we close this one out?
Not off the top of my head. I love this game. This game, it's not the best game in the world. It might be one of my favorite games in the world ever.
I think that's well put. Yeah.
Because it does a lot of things well. It has a couple of issues. It's not breaking the mold. It's not a redefinition of a genre, but it's so well done.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be considered the best, but it's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I will wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for watching and listening to yet another Spoilercast. I know we've had them sort of back-to-back here, but sometimes we all played the same game at the same time, and
Life throws you lemons in the form of Doki Doki Literature Club, and then you make lemonade in the form of Edith Finch.
Yeah, and then we record a couple spoiler casts. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.
And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is. This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.